Everyone. My name is David Catania. I'm the chairman of the Committee on Health. Today is Wednesday, January 28th. We're here in the historic John Wilson Chamber. It is at 2:05 p.m. The purpose of today's oversight hearing, and the reason why I've called this roundtable, is in order to discuss recent restructuring efforts undertaken by the Whitman Walker Clinic, created by and as a safe haven for the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community. Whitman Walker has grown into one of the most prominent HIV service providers in the nation. In a city with the highest HIV infection rate in the country, we all know how absolutely critical these services are, and that is why I'm so concerned about the recent changes announced by the clinic and what effect they will have on the future healthcare infrastructure of the district. Since becoming chair of the Committee on Health in January 2005, I've been intimately involved in ensuring the stability of this clinic. In fact, within months of assuming the chairmanship, I spearheaded efforts to secure a direct appropriation in the fiscal year 2006 budget process. In addition, I moved emergency legislation in the summer of 2005 to authorize up to $2.5 million in grants, of which $1 million was directly to support the clinic's Bridge Back program, a program that is now being closed in an effort to save costs. Without these funds, by the way, in the summer of 2005, the clinic surely would have closed, which is known by all. For the past 2 years succeeding that, I also worked to repeatedly gain additional support for the clinic. I supported the clinic when it went through its earlier restructuring in just over a year ago, including the sale of its iconic headquarters at 1407 S Street, and worked with the department to ensure an expedited review of the certificate of need, which made it possible for that sale to proceed and those funds to be claimed. In total, in the 3.5 years since I have chaired this committee, I have personally seen to it that this clinic has received $6 million in public investment. I want to repeat that. $6 million in the last 3.5 years. Yet despite my constant public advocacy and support for this clinic, I, like virtually every district resident, learned the details of this restructuring plan in exactly the same way, by reading it in the paper. And I want to repeat that. I learned about the restructuring of this facility, of this clinic, exactly as everyone else, despite my years of support for this clinic and the position that I have. With only a few days left in the calendar year, the clinic announced the layoff of 45 individuals, some of whom would be out of a job by December 31st, and program cuts, including the closure of the Northern Virginia location, which surely impacts services here in the district. At no point before the December announcement did the clinic come to this building to seek assistance or advice, nor do I believe that the clinic sought the assistance of our neighboring jurisdictions, despite the fact that Maryland residents, according to some estimates, make up 14% of the primary care and HIV patients, and similarly, Virginia residents comprise over 14%. In addition, I have significant concerns that the clinic left valuable resources on the table due to the failure to properly manage its financials, including leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars that it was entitled to in the District of Columbia on the table through wraparound services for the FQHC patients it serves through the Medicaid program, and still left unobtained Ryan White resources. Again, we were told that these downsizings and clinic closings and program cutback was the result of a necessary reduction in their budget. But we see in my staff in less than a few hours determined hundreds of thousands of dollars for which this clinic is presently owed that it has not sought, and no explanation as to why. I strongly believe that organizations need to be responsible in these tight economic times, and I applaud the clinic for attempting to recognize the need to live within its means. I also understand that this calls at times for tough decisions, but as I stated, I do not believe that these recently announced restructuring efforts are in the best interest of district residents, nor do I believe, as I mentioned earlier, that they were necessary. Moreover, I do not believe that there was the requisite transparency, both internally and externally, to ensure a smooth transition of services to those who will now lose them. And I'm also concerned that the clinic has strayed far too afield from its core mission, which was originally to serve the GLTB community. My concern is that in the latest round of cuts, that this will not be the last. My fear is that we are looking at just the beginning. And what started out as a robust HIV/AIDS clinic to serve the GLTB community has constantly been scaled back. First, the elimination of the Maryland office without even seeking resources from the state of Maryland. How absurd is that? Letting the Virginia office close without seeking any resources from the state of Maryland. How absurd is that? And I think next on the chopping block is the Max Robinson Clinic in Ward 8, which serves a critical part of our community where our epidemic is growing the fastest. I think it's simply a matter of time before the existing current leadership of this clinic slates the Max Robinson Clinic for the chopping block. In good conscience, I'm not going to allow this to happen so long as I chair this committee. And I think that is going to put us on somewhat of a collision course with the existing management of this clinic that I feel has taken a public trust and abused it. It has, and if need be, we can get into specific under oath conversations with members of my staff about how the senior management of the committee of the clinic lied to my staff about seeking reimbursements, bold-faced lies, none of which is acceptable. Having lost the confidence of this committee, it will be very difficult for the existing management of the clinic to regain it, and I seek to insert myself in a way to preserve these services for our residents, to restore the mission to the GLTV community, and to make sure that we put a stop to what is certainly death by attrition of a fabled institution in this city. With that, I'm going to call our public witnesses.